everywhere. So we're getting everything shared and up, so anyone who wants to join us live can.
Yep.
It's cool now that with YouTube's kind of more owning the live streaming, people can ask questions and chat live on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw you were asking if people had any questions.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Okay, perfect. All right, we got audio already recording. Let me go to my lesson notes. All right, any questions for me before we get started?
No, I think I know the drill, Grady.
All right, well, let's get started then. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Third Hour of Power. This is Grady of This Mormon Life, and this week I am joined once again by one of our most common guests. I think you got the record, Heather of LDS Youth Leadership. Heather, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again, Grady.
And this week we're talking about lesson 23 from the Howard W. Hunter manual, No Less Serviceable. That's what we do here at the Third Hour of Power. We talk about the lessons from the teachings of the presidents of the church, and we've got 2 lessons left this year for Howard W. Hunter. And I really like this lesson for a lot of reasons, but one of the ones that I loved was a quote that really stood out to me in kind of my family situation. It says here that life-changing service is rendered by many who are not seen in the limelight, who do not receive the attention of the world. And it just reminds me of just all the callings that we have, assignments that we have, is that even a quote unquote small responsibility or calling can make drastic impacts in the plan of our Heavenly Father and in His kingdom. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say that in my family, my parents, we weren't active when I was growing up. First of all, I was about 9. And my parents were moving into my grandparents' house. My grandparents were moving into Big Bear. Actually, no, Lake Elsinore. First, going to Lake Elsinore. And my grandpa, he grabbed the bishop at the time, and he said, "You give my son the best home teacher you have, or when we get to the other side, I'm going to come find you, and you're going to have to answer to me." And so the bishop took it to heart, and he said, "Okay, well, if I'm going to make sure he gets the best home teacher possible, I'm just going to have it be me." So he was our home teacher for years, and my family wasn't ready to come back to the church yet for a while, but he always was consistent, always there for us. And because of his consistency and his love for our family, we eventually did come back to the church, and we got the blessings of being sealed as a family. I had a wonderful growing up experience having my dad be my youth leader. My dad, as a result, has been a rock solid home teacher, and he's helped families come back to church. He's helped part member families join the church and go to the temple and be sealed as a family forever. And because of it, I was raised in the gospel, and I was sealed in the temple. And I now have a wonderful wife who has a husband who's temple worthy, and I've got 3 awesome sons who are going to go on mission someday, and a daughter who will probably go too. And I just think, this one assignment of just home teach my son, and just thinking about all the way that this has now gone out and blessed so many lives as a result. And it's just such a sobering reminder that there's no such thing as a small calling.
Absolutely not. Just like really, there are no small acts of service. They might seem small to the person doing them, but I once heard a story where somebody talked about this, that what this person did for me didn't change the world, but it changed the world inside of me.
I love the quote from Marianne Cook when she says that when you save a girl, you save generations. When you have if you serve with the young women, and you've got a couple beehives, that's all you have responsibility for, but the benefits and the blessings that can come when you serve diligently in that calling.
Right. I mean, we're all responsible to help each other out, to lift each other, to help people come unto Christ, and there's no unimportant way to do that.
So you've been reading through the lesson, what are some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, you know, that the same thing stood out to me. I loved what he said about not wanting to get attention for our service. You know, we must not allow ourselves to focus on the fleeting light of popularity or substitute that attractive glow for the substance of true but often anonymous labor that brings the attention of God, even if it does not get coverage on the 6 o'clock news. In fact, applause and attention can become the spiritual Achilles heels of even the most gifted among us. And this made me think of a ward that I used to live in. There was the bishop's wife there was one of those people who was amazing at quiet service. And I remember one time, and I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but we had some members who were in wheelchairs, and I remember one time I happened to be in the bathroom at the same time she was helping a sister who was in a wheelchair go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Not a lot of people are comfortable providing that kind of service to do that, but she was not the least bit afraid or shy to help her. And and once again, she wasn't somewhere where people were going to see her and glorify what she was doing. But I remember that. That's a memory I have from 17, 18 years ago of her.
Yeah, I think it's great when you see people just quietly serving, and doing just kind of these little things that you never know about. They do it because they want to serve when they want to help. And sometimes it's an interesting dichotomy of sometimes you want to share what you've done to serve, and sometimes you want to keep it secret. And the 5th section in this lesson talks about that. It says that, oops, too far. Section 5. Yeah, there it is. It says that he talks about just when Christ was talking to his disciples, and he says, "Take heed that ye do not your alms before men, to be seen of men. Otherwise, ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven." And I think about just kind of the idea of quiet service, but at the same time, there are times when it is appropriate to share things that we're doing. I love right now the church is really promoting and trying to encourage us to share uplifting and serviceful things that we're doing with that hashtag Light the World.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love it too. And one of the things that I like, because, when we had the influencer meetup and we were talking about this, and some people were like, well, how do you talk about the service that you've done in such a public way? And one of the things that I thought about was, well, but I could also highlight service that I see people doing around me. As a matter of fact, I think one of the emails that came out actually suggested that, and I loved that. So if we don't want to talk about what we're doing ourselves, we can talk about how other people are serving people around us and how people are serving us.
Mm-hmm. So today was all about sharing a scripture or reading scriptures or something around scriptures. And so the one that I shared today was a scripture I've been thinking a lot about since this initiative. And it's Matthew 5:14 through 16. And, it talks about how ye are the light of the world. And, it says, let your light so shine that men can see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And I think that is the big key to it, is that it's okay to share good things that you're doing. It's okay to talk about service that you're rendering and good that you're doing, but you got to make sure that your purpose is pure, that you're not doing this to get glory to yourself. You're not doing this to say, look how great I am. I cooked 30 meals for everybody, but instead saying, it was hard for me, but I took time out to serve people and make 30 meals. And because I can do it, I know that you can too. And
right.
Here are some ways you can serve.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think you're really right. The motivation behind why we serve matters a great deal.
Yeah, in fact, so the quote I was trying to read but got thrown off in section 5, he talks about just the idea of sometimes people get callings that they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, she serves in the primary right now, and my dad serves in the bishopric. And one of the things they've had a hard time with is primary, is people are given assignments. The bishop has prayed and felt inspired to call someone to serving Cub Scouts, to serve in primary, and they say, no, I'd rather do something else. And they're just blown away and just floored that just kind of that disconnection from the vision. And it says here in the manual, it says that it might also be profitable for us to answer the question, why do we serve? When we understand why, we won't be concerned about where we serve.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I picked out too. and I don't know why I connected it with a quote from Elder Scott in my brain, but I'll share it and maybe the two of us can make sense of this. But Elder Scott, this is, I think, actually a conference talk that he gave about personal revelation, but he talks about service in regards to personal revelation. And he says, when we are acting as instruments in behalf of others, we are more easily inspired than when we think only of ourselves. In the process of helping others, the Lord can piggyback directions for our own benefit.
Well, I think the thing that stood out to me was just the idea that when we stop focusing on ourselves, that's where the blessings come. And and that's part of it, is when we're serving other people, it's not about, hey, I want the really cool calling, or I want the really big calling that everyone sees. I want to make the annual Christmas dinner, and I want everyone to thank me for how good I am at table settings. We're missing the point if that's our focus. And saying, okay, well, if you want me to be the person who hands out the programs on Sunday, then I am going to do a wonderful job at it, and I'm going to make everyone who walks in that door feel welcome to be at church and receive a program, and magnify that calling and that responsibility. The thing that isn't also, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I will always yield to my guests.
I know that. I was just going to say, absolutely. I mean, I just, it's kind of like how they say in high school drama. I used to hear this, when we did plays. There are no small parts. Everybody makes a contribution. Everybody's needed.
Yeah, definitely. This idea of the idea of not feeling like you're serving the way you should be, or that what you're doing isn't important enough. And I think of my wife Christie, she's been our guest. I think she's probably in competition with you with our most often guest. and she's served with the Cub Scouts now. I think we're on 4 years, maybe 5 years, and over 3 wards. When we left California, she was in Cub Scouts, and we moved to a new ward, and she's kind of like, I'm kind of excited to have a new opportunity to serve somewhere else. And then she got called back to Cub Scouts again. And so she did that for 1.5 years. We moved to a new ward. She's like, I'm kind of looking forward to not serving with Cub Scouts anymore and doing something different. They called her to Cub Scouts again. But she's wonderful at it. And she makes a connection with these boys, and they love her for it. And I just think, she's building these bricks of these young testimonies right now. They're going to be the mortar that they need to build the foundation of their testimonies. That was one of the things. Go ahead.
No, finish.
I was just going to say that we had a really wise bishop once in my home ward growing up, and he knew that if he was going to have a successful ward, that he needed to stack the primary with the best of the best. And so he called some of those best people that he had to teach. And I had one of those teachers. It was actually his own son. And I had him as my teacher. And because Todd Lastig was my teacher, I wanted to go to church. Whereas before, as a 9-year-old boy, 8-year-old boy, of never going to church on Sunday, instead of going to play with my friends, now I can't do that. And I have to go to church. There's a chance that could go sideways if I didn't have the right teacher. But I had a teacher that told funny stories, who loved me and cared about me. And so when my parents were thinking, let's not go today. We're kind of, how it is when you're kind of coming back to the gospel, it's very easy to go back on your commitments. And they're thinking, let's not go. And I said, no, I have to go because I want to go to primary today. And I just think, those kinds of things, a 19-year-old boy getting ready to go on his mission, was asked to serve in the primary. And as a result, our family was strengthened. And as a young boy, I learned to love going to church, and I loved to learn to read the scriptures. And I just think, well, first, what an inspired bishop that is, but what a good young man that was, who could have just sloughed off that responsibility and said, I'll just go do this, like on my mission, and I'll just show up. But instead, he tried his best, and as a result, we had a wonderful program. Those young men that I served with, we were strong in the gospel through our youth. Most of us got our Eagle Scouts, and a bunch of us went on missions as a result, I think, of just having a strong foundation of the gospel, having strong teachers back then. And, and when someone could have thought, I'm just serving in primary, but saying, I'm having a difference in these lives.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you've got to look at that bigger picture. Sometimes you don't see that what you're doing makes a difference right away. I was a Cub Scout den leader for 3 years, and I loved that calling. They took me from Cub Scout den leader to primary president, which was incredibly scary after being a den leader for 3 years. But that was long enough ago that some of my Cub Scouts have now earned their Eagles. They've gone on missions. They're married. And it's wonderful to know that I was a very small part of their lives.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing too. When me and Christie first got married, we taught the Sunbeams, these little tiny kids. But, because my wife is amazing and loved those kids, and I loved them too, but she was, of course, better than I was at that. But because of that, we've seen these kids now going on missions. And the thing is, though, is that they still love her. They still, everything they see her, hi, Sister Kern, and they give her a hug. And she wants to give them a hug because after all these years, she loves them. And I just think it's so important as we have responsibilities in the church that we take them seriously, that we don't think that, this isn't important. I only have one family on my home teaching route. They're an active family, and whether I see them or not, it won't make a difference. But to say, what, the Lord has the work for me to do, and he needs my help. One of the things that I always loved was one of my leaders. He would talk about priesthood responsibility and responsibilities in serving the Lord. And he was just saying, you need to go to that doorstep, and you need to have the attitude of, Jesus Christ couldn't show up today, so he sent me in his place. And if you have that kind of attitude of, I'm here to do what the Savior wants done, I am here in his place, serving in his stead, your attitude will change, and you'll be able to magnify that calling and make it be what he needs it to be, and touch the lives that he needs touched.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we forget that that's what we're doing. When we were all baptized, we promised to take upon ourselves the name of Christ. And that's one of the things that means.
Yeah. How about other things stood out to you in the lesson?
I loved what he said about not rushing through life, taking the time to look for things that you can do, little needs that you can fill. And I was thinking about that and thinking about, my days when, my days sometimes get really full. I have, between my 2 kids, I have one I get to high school in the morning, the other one I get off to work in the morning, and then in the afternoon I go and pick one up from school and pick the other one up from work. And sometimes I feel very much like I'm catching myself coming and going. And it can be very easy to feel like I'm rushing through my life. But I can tell the difference on the days when I take the time to stop, no matter how many other things I'm trying to do. If I take a minute and I stop and I look for other people and try to look for things that I can do for them, that makes it a much better day than if I just simply rush through my day and I don't, and I walk past somebody who's struggling to put their groceries in the back of their car. Why? Because I don't have time. And we forget. Sometimes it's a 30-second act of service that's been put in our path, and we think we don't have time.
And that's the whole, I think the premise I think about is that the light of the world is that, to stop and to give someone a smiling face and to do something, a moment of kindness brings the light of Christ into their life, and they feel loved and they feel the love of their Savior when we're serving other people. It gives them a glimpse of that. And so even the small things that we can do really can change someone's day. So my wife, she never listens to the podcast, and so I'm going to go ahead and share this. Where one of the days was about, it was encouraging you to reach out to someone and talking about how you see them, the way that you see them of who they really are. And so she sent a bunch of messages to people that she cared about, and she told them about how much she loved them and the great things that she saw in them. And it was so wonderful, just kind of laying in bed with her and watching her messages, responses coming back. And it was just, I needed this today. I had a really hard day today, but this has made everything okay. I am so glad for your friendship as well. It really means so much to me that you reached out to me today. All these messages of gratitude of these people that that was what they needed today. And that's what their highlight was just a quick moment of just a heartfelt expression of love and admiration for these other women that she calls friends.
Yeah, well, and I think about that, I've been amazed, especially when I was a New Young Women's president. One thing that I really tried to take time to do every day was to send a short email to, somebody who served with me in my calling, one of my young women, a short email, a thank you note. Maybe it was even to a parent of a girl. But I was always amazed when I would just send this short little email and say, hey, you did such a great job at this, and I just wanted to thank you. And the response, that it meant so much to them. But then I think we forget when we do things like that, how it feels when someone does it for us. Mm-hmm. We have the same, I feel the same way when somebody does something like that for me. I appreciate it, and it means a lot to me.
Yeah, there's a video that I love, a Mormon message that I love, that we'll link into the show notes, called "You Never Know How Much Good You Do." And it just shows this, day in the life of this mom, and she's got all these things on her to-do list. But part of her to-do list also is some opportunities to serve. Mm-hmm. And she's just overwhelmed of, how am I going to do all those responsibilities that I have and also do this service as well? And I'd highly recommend it. It's not very long. Actually, no, it is long. It's about 8 minutes. Mm-hmm. So maybe if you're a Relief Society president or you're a teacher, maybe send that video out to your class and invite people to watch it before, to be a little bit of a primer before they come to class, to say, hey, watch this and think about ways that you can serve. I think that would be really helpful for your class. Do you remember that one?
That video? No, I don't.
Well, you got to watch it then.
I better watch it. Send me the link.
I will. And the other one that I love, and it's actually attached in the lesson, but it's called Lift. And it's about...
Oh, yes.
And that one, one. And it's just about this elders quorum and this woman in the ward who just felt unloved and utterly alone. And this elders quorum had this hard assignment to take care of her. And at first they didn't want to do it, but just the way their hearts changed. And the same thing, if you're in the high priest, the elders quorum, and you want to make sure that your class comes prepared to have a heartfelt, meaningful discussion, share this video with them. I'll put it in the show notes as well, so you have it. But these will help prime the pump when it comes to teaching this lesson, because that's what you want. You want to have that lesson designed as a discussion. You want them to have opportunities to serve, opportunities to ponder and think about these topics, so that you can come together and have a heartfelt discussion and make a plan of how you can become better.
Yeah, and those additional resources can make such a huge difference. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think some of the best lessons are when we take time to discuss and share our insights with each other about what we understand about the doctrine that's being taught.
Mm-hmm. Well, Heather, is there anything else to the lesson before we wrap it up today?
No, that's it. But I think we covered it really well.
We did. You did. I like this lesson a lot. I was really excited to teach it as I saw the topic, and I thought, I think that is really important. I always joke around because my calling is the assistant advisor in the Deacons Quorum, and I'm like the lowest man on the totem pole, but I love what I do, and I love serving with these young men, I'm happy to do whatever the Lord wants me to do. And hopefully you guys feel the same. But if you are struggling with the calling that you have, hopefully this lesson will help you to realize that what you're doing is needed, and what you're doing is wanted, and what you're doing is blessing lives. Heather, tell me about what's going on with your blog this week.
Oh man, with Light the World, you may have seen this, you may not have seen this, but Sugar Doodle organizes a bunch of LDS bloggers. And so this year what they did was they got 9 LDS bloggers. So these are all graphic artists. They all made printable kits to support the Light the World campaign. And then what they do is they get as many other bloggers to promote them as possible. So I have all 9 of those kits hosted on my site. They're spread over 2 different links. So if it's okay, I'll send you both of them so that people can find them. But,
yeah.
If you want to see what other people are doing service-wise, this is another way to look at it.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I am loving this campaign just because it's every day and it's actionable of things that we can do to go out and to serve and to do. Over on my pages, on my Facebook, on my Instagram, I'm trying to share each day what I've done, or at least my thoughts on each initiative each day, just to be a primer and to help you out. So if you're not quite sure what to do, or if you think, I don't know if I want to do this, go check those out and see that it's fun and it makes impacts in our lives. Another great thing that you're going to find on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page is that we're kind of getting back into movie reviews. And so we just did one for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And we did one for Hacksaw Ridge. I'm sorry, it's rated R. But we did those 2 movies. And so if you miss when we used to do movie reviews from an LDS perspective, go back and check those out. And then we've got I'm looking at the movie calendar, there's about 5 more that I want to do in the next 2 or 3 months. And so if you guys like these videos and you appreciate it, share them with your friends, comment, let us know how they go. And also thank you guys for watching as we recorded live tonight. Also thank you for those of you who are maybe listening to the audio podcast at this point. Kristen Jones said, great stuff. Thank you both. So Heather, you're doing a good job. Kristen thinks you're doing a good job. And then also just as kind of a more housekeeping item, I guess, is that we were with a partnership of This Week in Mormons. We did this podcast, and we're trying to make things a little more streamlined in the process. Right now, there's a little bit of a delay. We record this, I mix it, and then I give it to Jeff over there. And depending on kind of the time frame, it might be some time before it shows up in iTunes. And so I'm going to be now owning that feed. So make sure that if you are listening to this on iTunes or on Stitcher, double check when we move over to Gordon B. Hinckley next year. I'm going to be moving over the feed. So make sure you follow us at the new location so that you don't miss that manual, because I am so excited for Gordon B. Hinckley manual.
Oh, me too. I'm looking forward to next year.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for joining us again. Check out her website, ldsyouthleadership.com, or check out mine if you like, this-mormon-life. That's where you're going to also find the show notes for this episode with some video links as well as links to Heather's site. And we thank you guys so much. We're count it a pleasure to be able to help you to prepare for class. And until next time, we bid you all a fond adieu.